Good afternoon. I'm Larry Curran, Director of the Webinar Program for SCORE Westchester. Welcome to our webinar on Build Trust Through Brand Marketing, How to Raise Trust and Lower Risk to Attract Clients. This is a critical topic for all businesses. We'll be learning from Rob Genovese, owner of Unleash My Beast brand. You'll learn a lot of useful ideas and information from Rob today. But first, I want to say a couple of words about SCORE. SCORE Westchester supports local entrepreneurs through free confidential mentoring and educational programs like this webinar program. Our clients are startup and established businesses. Our volunteer business mentors draw on a wide range of experience and expertise. You can reach us at westchester.score.org. Now for some housekeeping. Everyone will be muted during the presentation. You can chat with Rob, but we would ask you to use the Q&A button to ask any questions. We will leave time at the end of the webinar to answer those questions. Also, a link to the recording will be sent to everyone later on. It is now my pleasure to introduce Rob Genovese, the owner of Unleash My Beast brand. Rob launched his company in 2015 after a career in advertising, marketing, and publishing. He switched his enterprise into a brand strategy company and has helped his clients achieve faster and more efficient growth. He also hosts his own YouTube channel, Unleash My Beast brand, where he teaches on the power of branding. We will all learn a lot from Rob today. Rob, all yours.
All right, thanks, Larry. Appreciate it. And just in the chat, if you could tell me if you can hear me, you could see me okay. We'll do an audio video check. Just give me a gotcha or a yes or a thumbs up or whatever you want, so I know I'm coming through loud and clear. All right, they're coming in. Yep, gotcha. All right, awesome. A lot of great people coming in here. Some names I'm familiar with and some new friends that hope I'll be meeting. So this is good. All right, so first of all, I want to give a shout out and say, thank you to the SCORE crew for inviting me to speak in here. It's always an honor to come in, and when you're asked to be part of to speak for an organization, I never take it lightly to be able to speak to the people. And this event here, we're going to be talking about branding, sure, but we're going to be talking about something that is a little bit more specific in terms of branding, where we're going to hit on something that a lot of people, business owners, that you're faced with. And one of those things that you're faced with is building trust and lowering risk. But I know that, Larry, are you going to be talking about SCORE here, or should I just move right into the talk here? You let me know. All right, so we're going to go right into it.
You can go right into the talk, Rob.
Thank you, Larry. All right, so, building trust and lowering risk is something that a lot of business owners don't really think about. When you're getting yourself out there, and you're getting in front of people, and you're maybe doing some social media, maybe you're recording videos, maybe you're doing some social media posts, whatever you're doing marketing wise, whatever's part of your strategy, you're faced with something that you probably don't even know is there. Now, we do talk about this sometimes, especially if you are in sales, this may be talked about a lot, but there's this factor of trust, and how do you build trust with people? When networking, we know that we are basically doing business with people we like, know, and trust. And so that trust becomes a big factor in moving us towards people and building a connection with people. But I want to give you a little bit of background on where I'm coming from with this. When I started my company, I actually was a website and design company. And selling websites is easy, but it wasn't a business that I was looking to be in, because it became more of a how many websites could I churn out in a week? And it became a business of volume, more like a factory. And honestly, while I think that's a good business for a lot of people, it wasn't the right business for me. So when I had a client come to me one time, and he wasn't my client yet, and he said to me, hey, I need a website, and I paid a guy $1,100 to get me a website. I don't have a website. So what do you think I'm thinking here? Like, okay, you paid the guy and you don't have a website. So I said to him, I said, what happened? He's like, well, he did some work, but he didn't seem to get me. So I paid him $1,100 because he did some work, but I don't have a website. He goes, can you help me? And like every good business owner, I go, absolutely. And as I'm walking away, I'm going, oh man, how am I going to help this guy? Because here's what I was facing as a designer. Why did I think that he was going to like my designs more than that guy's designs, more than the other web guy? Well, the fact is I had to take a more strategic approach. And so he threw in the word brand in our conversation. And so I took that approach and I interviewed him. I found out what's his mission, what's his vision, what are his values, what are his goals, who's his competition? A lot of things that you as business owners need to be thinking about all the time. Because when you identify these things, you have a clearer picture of where you need to point your company and how to communicate with people. So what I did was I took the information that I gleaned from our conversation and I designed a logo, I designed a website, I wrote a marketing copy and I presented it to him. And he goes, man, he goes, you absolutely nailed it. He goes, it's like you were in my head. How did you do that? And he bought everything. And I did it a couple more times with clients. And what I realized is this, that the strategy enabled me to sell the design, sell my business, sell my expertise to him because I actually solved his problem, which was, how do I overcome this lack of awareness? How do I become the chosen one in my industry? He's a contractor in New York. I mean, could it get more competitive than that? You know, just if you're in a competitive industry, just put in the chat, say me, say, yeah, I'm in a competitive industry. Let me know if you're out there, if you're experiencing this kind of thing, that competition is part of one of your challenges. Like, how are you standing out? You know, branding by definition is differentiation. It's standing out. It's differentiating yourself from your competition. So here you're a fitness. Oh yeah, fitness, heavily competitive industry, right? Well, there's good and bad about that. And it depends on your optimism level as a business owner. You know, this is different from positive thinking, by the way. If you're a positive thinker, you go, man, the sun is shining, everything's great. Well, it's raining outside and you're broke. So it doesn't really change the facts. Anybody been there? I've been there. So there's nothing wrong with positivity, but optimism is something different. Optimism is saying it's keeping a positive outlook that when opportunity shows itself, you can take advantage of it. It's an open-mindedness to the good things that come your way. And if you're just positive, you don't take action, you don't recognize opportunity, you just say the sun is shining and everything's going to be great. And you sit there and you wait for the phone to ring. Well, no, faith requires work, right? So we have this idea that when we start in business, right, we are going to places where we are going to be just hopefully getting clients. We're going to be going to meetings, we're getting clients, we're going to be meeting people, we're just getting clients. And if you've ever met with a lot of clients and you didn't get hired, you know that there's something missing there. So anyway, so when I started thinking about this more strategic approach and I did it for more, I realized it was the strategic thinking that allowed me to sell my business, to sell my services to people, right? Because I was actually solving a problem. And so branding became the evolution of my website design company, where I didn't become a brand strategist because I thought, hey, when I grow up, I want to be a brand strategist. So I went to school and I got a degree or a certification. And then I opened up my business and I said, okay, I'm a brand strategist now, and wait for the clients to come in. I became a brand strategist because it literally saved my company. When I applied the same principles that I gave to those clients who then had success, and by the way, they got legit success fairly quickly, and then over time, even more. And I've spoken with them and they attribute it to the brand strategy that we implemented. But I noticed that I had my company before I built my own brand strategy. So I had to tear it all down and I had to rejig it. I evolved it by putting myself through the brand strategy process. And then what came out the other side is what you're kind of seeing here today. Now, this is just the visuals. It's just a name and a logo. But the essence, the core of what this business is what my company's brand is. It's kicking fear aside. It's not being it's made me being afraid, but kicking it aside and having the courage to change, to say, this is why I'm different, and making no apologies for your approach to your business. That's what differentiates you. So a lot of business owners are afraid to do something different because some clients, some people in the audience might go, that's not for me. And you're afraid of that. You can't be afraid of that. See, even Apple, as successful as they are, as one of the most valued brands in the world, can't have 100% of the market, right? They still have to deal with Android, but they have a very loyal following. So you can't have everybody, nor should you try. But the good news is when you say, this is where I stand, this is what I stand for, and you draw a line in the sand, you say, this is who we serve, you get people out there that go, he's talking my language, kind of like my client did, right? So you want to attract those people because they'll fall in love with you and they'll follow you forever. So that's why brand strategy is important. So what I want to get into here today, that's a little bit background of how I came to this. But I want to get into is a certain part of brand strategy that really gets into the part that is a little bit more ambiguous, where every time you're talking with somebody, every time you're putting out some kind of marketing, you don't know if you're quite hitting the mark with people. So in other words, here's the deal. If you have a website, just put me in the chat. If you got a website, I want to see how many people actually have websites, because I know there's some businesses that don't have websites. And it's amazing to me, but if you don't feel bad. Not every business necessarily needs one. I think you should have one. It's kind of like a business listing of sorts. Okay, so we're getting all these me's. So you got the website. Now, when people go to your website, right, what do you know that you want your website to do, right? If you know the answer, what is a website supposed to do for you? Put it in the chat now. What is a website supposed to do in your business? And just to give you a second there to put that in the chat. Because when they go there, they're thinking one thing. Number one, you got about 2 seconds before they bounce. You've got about 2 seconds before to be able to pull them in, to have them scroll down and learn a little bit more. All right, I'm getting answers like drive traffic, all right, to validate you as a company, credibility. Okay, Michelle, good one. Marilyn, give customers enough information to know what we do. All right, promote. It's our online office. They introduce us. All right, give information. Okay, book appointments, provide value. All right, these are all good, and these are all true. But what I didn't see here, maybe I missed it, is how about they go to your website and they hire you? And maybe that may be part of booking an appointment. I know there's a process here, but listen to what I'm saying. When they go to your website, what prompts them to book an appointment, email you, call you on the phone? What prompts that? So when they go there, here's what your audience is thinking. Now, number one, now understand this. So you're in the sales business. We're all looking to sell. But here's the thing. You can't time the stock market, so you can't know when a person's ready to buy. So the point is here, you have to be in their minds, because at some point your audience, or they're walking around there, right? They're the general population of people who are maybe soon in the market for your services, but they haven't made a decision to purchase yet. So they're out there on social media, and when they see an exposure to your company and they come to your website, are they looking to buy? We don't know yet. But if they are, you want to be able to get them right there. So when they come in, what's going to stop them? Have you ever gone to a website and you go there and you go, ooh, I don't think so, right? And you leave. Give me a yes if you ever go on a website and you questioned the credibility of the company you were there. Right. So we're getting, yeah. So all the time. Absolutely. So here's the thing. Why is that? The reason is this. They don't trust you yet. Why don't they trust you? There's something they're seeing there that is leading them to go, I don't have enough trust in you to even take that step to call you yet. And what do? They might be going to a competitor's website. Now, a website is only one example. I'm talking about social media. I'm talking about face-to-face conversations. They don't trust you yet. So what do you do to raise trust in people's minds? There's a bunch of things you can do. And I'm going to touch on some of the tactics here, but I want to talk about it conceptually first to be able to understand that raising trust is pivotal, because if they don't trust you, they're not going to hire you. You understand? They're not going to hire you. So that part is one part of the equation, but the name of this talk is, raising trust and lowering risk. So let's talk about risk for a second. I've heard this many times from many successful business owners, entrepreneurs, and they said that people don't buy the cheapest option. They buy the least risky option. Give me a yes or an amen in the chat if you understand that. See, there's a reason why they make Rolex watches and Lamborghinis, right? If you wanted a car, well, I mean, you could just go buy a Hyundai or a Honda or one of the cheaper end cars, even though Hyundai, their prices have gone up over the years. But, if you wanted simply a car to get you from A to B, there's plenty of very cheap options, but yet people still buy $90,000, $100,000, $150,000 cars. If you wanted to know the time, like literally you can buy a watch at the dollar store It might keep time for a month, but people buy Rolexes. Why? Because there's a certain prestige to it. Why? Here's the thing. The point is this. It's really not about money. People don't buy the cheapest option. They buy the least risky option. Think about it. So every time you've ponied up a good deal of money for something, you're thinking to yourself, am I going to get ripped off? Maybe at the worst. Is the quality going to be there? Is the expectations I have going to be met by this company? Are they going to meet my expectations of what their product or service is going to provide? That's the question. So risk is very high in your audience's mind. When they're coming to you, they're evaluating you. They're going, yeah, do I trust this person? Number one, but how risky are they? Well, think about this for a second. If you were to buy something that the average price of that thing was $100, right? And you're like, okay, I'd pay $100 for that, but I'm not so sure I'd buy it from this company. But then another company offers it for 25. You're going, for 25, maybe I'll give it a shot, because what am I risking? I'm only risking $25 versus 100. I'm not willing to risk 100, but for 25, I'll give it a shot. They say it's a good product. I'm going to see. And we've all done that, right? I've done that plenty of times. You know what? For 100, no. For 25, yeah, I'll give it a shot. Why? Risk, right? So what you want to be able to do is you want to understand that in their minds, they're evaluating you on these two things. So what do we need to do to lower these things? Well, we're going to get into it in a second, but I want to touch on something else, because it's not just these two things. And a lot of this has to do, this is part of brand strategy, by the way. When I work with my clients, all this stuff is woven throughout a very comprehensive program. I'm going to touch on a few things today, but here's the other thing. You're going to want to know this one thing. You're going to want to know who your ideal client is. Now, look, I know you're going, oh, geez, not the ideal client again. How many times have you heard somebody mention ideal client? When we're networking, we're talking about, well, who's your ideal client or who's ideal for you? And sometimes, we hear a phrase so much, it washes over us without any meaning after a while. We become numb to it. But I want you to understand this. The ideal client is exactly that. They are ideal for you. And put in the chat, if you know who your ideal client is, just put in a I do in the chat. And if you don't, that's okay. I really want to know if people are honing in on this, because if you're doing this, right, then chances are you're having success. If you're not having success, we got a couple other things missing, and we're going to want to talk about those. But your ideal client is this. A lot of people go, I've heard this example, and you may have heard this before. The skincare consultant, and if you're a skincare consultant out there, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about somebody else, but it's a natural thing and a normal thing to go, well, my ideal client is anybody with skin, right? Because you go, well, everybody can use what I have to offer. We know that. It's true. But here's the problem with that. If everybody has skin, you're making it seem like everybody is exactly the same. What's exactly the same, you're assuming? Their beliefs, their values, what they hold dear to them, where they spend their time, where they spend their money. All these other things, all these other traits come into play. So you can't just say that's anybody with skin, because not everybody is going to buy from you. Not everybody's the best client for you. Not everybody cares that much. So you got to drill down. So what do you need to do? You need to niche. You need to get honed in. You need to get laser focus. We all understand this about focus, right? Can I talk about focus for a second? Focus is this. The sun shines down on a piece of wood and it warms the wood. Nice to the touch. Run that same sunlight through a magnifying glass, and what does it do? It burns the wood, right? Focus does that. Focus concentrates energy into one place to give you a result. Well, the same is true with the ideal client. When you understand exactly who they are, focus who they are. So let's talk about demographics and psychographics. Let's talk about these things like, where do they live? Do they live in the city, the suburbs? Do they live in the rural area? Are they married? Are they single? Do they have kids? Are they business owners? Are they employees? How much money do they make? Where do they spend their free time? What charities do they hold dear to them? Who do they hang out with? Where do they go online? So you start to learn a lot about a person, because I'll tell you this. Tell me something. If you had to buy a gift for somebody, who is easier to buy a gift for? your significant other or total stranger? Now, the answer is obvious, right? Well, I don't know the stranger. I don't know what would be the perfect gift for the stranger. That's easy to buy. Well, let's look at this, Michelle. It's not easy to buy for a stranger because you don't know what they like. You don't know their lifestyle. You don't know what would be appropriate. But for a significant other or a person that you're very close with, you understand them. You understand about their dreams and what their aspirations and what makes them happy, right? How do you speak their language? So it's easier that when you know exactly who they are. So back to your ideal client. Okay. When you know exactly who they are. So maybe your client is a woman, self-employed, 25 to 45 years old. She has one child. She lives in the city. She lives in an apartment. She lives on the Upper East Side. She does yoga. She frequents smoothie places. You start to understand her. She volunteers for animal shelters twice a week. Now, as I'm saying this, do you know somebody like that or pretty close? And that's just a few traits. Chances are you're going, oh my gosh, I know somebody just like that. That's it. That's the ideal client methodology. When you know who that is for your clientele, then what do you know you can do? So if we're talking about that ideal client I just kind of outlined really quick, then you know where her heart lies. And if you know where her heart lies, look, people make decisions based on emotions and they back it up with intellect. And so when you can speak to her, her needs, her wants and desires as a company, what does she say? They're speaking my language. They're for me, and attracts her to you. So that's why it's important to understand your ideal client. And it's important to take the time to really get a detailed picture. Where I learned this some time ago, if you were to fill out a missing persons report for somebody in your life, you know, they do the sketch artist, they want to know all the details. Why? Because the more precise the picture, the easier it is to find them. And the same thing with your ideal client. The more precise the picture, the easier it is to find them. So marketers can find them. All right. Ideal client. Identify who they are and speak their language. All right. Let's look at the next thing. Branded process. Now, chances are you really haven't heard a lot about this. And honestly, I hadn't heard a lot about this before I kind of stumbled across it, honestly, while doing work for my clients and coming across something that this is one of the most valued parts, one of the most critical parts of a brand strategy for your company. And that says this. All right, so let's go back to risk and trust. Here's the amazing part about this. So trust is increased when what? Well, if you come to me and you're like, I'm not sure I trust you yet, but then somebody comes along and says, hey, you want to know something? He had the same, I had the same problem as you, and Rob really helped me. And, you know, he went through this process and, you know, it solved my problem. All right. So now your trust goes up, right? It's a third party testimonial, but you start to understand, well, oh, he went through your process. Oh yeah, he's got this great process. One thing that happens in addition to that is the risk is lowered. Because here's the thing, if now you've heard that before, but then you go on the website and you see a list of clients, and better yet, next to it, you see a process that's laid out. Think about this. If you've ever seen a company and you go onto their website, you maybe have heard this and they go, we have a simple 3-step process. We go boom, and then we go boom, and we go boom, and you have results. Every time we've seen that, what do we do? So they've done this so many times before, they have their own process. Risk is lowered. They know, right? Hey, you're not experimenting on me. I'm not the guinea pig for your business. You've done this so many times, you have your own process. Risk is lowered. Trust is increased, right? Because you trust, number one, there's got to be credibility there. But number two, if you have a process, they know you're not winging it, right? That's like going to a doctor and he's like, hey, doc, what do you think? Well, I'm not really sure. I think I'm just going to roll the dice here and see whether or not you need surgery or you need, you know, something else. Like, that's absurd, right? If he didn't have a process for finding out exactly what the problem is and how to solve it, we wouldn't go to him. So the branded process is this. You already have this. And this is what I want to talk about. The beautiful part about this, you already have a process. If you've done more than a few clients, if you've been around for a year or two, if you've just started up, maybe you don't have it quite yet, but I would say work on it. It's one of the things I focused on early in my business is what is my process that is repeatable every single client, so I know how to get them from start to success. All right. So if you have a process that you are now, put in the chat, tell me if you have a process or if you don't have a process, and don't feel bad if you don't, because I'm telling you, a lot of people don't work on this, but I just want to get an idea if, where you're at with this, because I want to point out the fact that if you have this written down, it's a good thing, but think about if you don't have it written down. All right. When you take somebody from start and you take them through the steps to get them to a successful result, you have a process. Now, it's as simple as that. This is the simplest thing that you can do that has the most impact in your business, that if you were not to hire a brand strategist, that you could do this and actually get better results. So what does it look like? It looks like this. What I just said, if they go to your website and they see, hey, we have this exclusive ABC process, and we have step 1 and we do this, and we have step 2 and we do this, and we have step 3 and we do this. The person looking at it is going, okay, makes sense. They're more likely to hire you because you've done what we're looking to achieve right here at the same time. Trust is increased, risk is lowered at the same time. Branded process is one of the greatest things you can do. And when you're talking with somebody, you can do the same thing. People ask me all the time. I was just on a call yesterday with a potential client. I go, here's how I work. And I tell them my process. You know what they do? It sounds great. Why? I've instilled confidence that I'm not experimenting on them. So it's really important that you understand this part. I'm going to tell you, this will go far than any other thing you can do immediately, only because you already have it. All right, let's go to the next thing. Let's go to social proof. We know this is testimonials, but social proof goes a lot farther because it turns up in so many places. It could turn up as a Google review, right? 5-star review. You've asked clients, maybe they've given you a 5-star review. That goes far in terms of people going, oh, somebody else had a good experience. Maybe you've got a video testimony you put on your website, or maybe you play it on social media, social proof. Maybe you've got quotes that you can put out there. Hey, just had a client, had a great experience. Here's what they had to say, right? Put that on social media, social proof, right? Social proof is, now, if I come here and I go like this, and this is hard, right? Because I'm talking, but I'm going, hey, you should listen to me because I'm the best brand strategist there is. Let me tell you why I'm the best. I'm so great. What are you thinking? You're like, right? You're like, please, you want to get away from me. That nobody likes that. You can't really self-edify because nobody's going to buy it. But if somebody else says something good about you and you're just sitting there quiet, what does it mean to them? Right? When somebody else talks good about you, in the other person's eyes, they're going, oh, okay, well, maybe this person is good. And if enough people say, guess what? You are the go-to person. Now, look, I know you know some of this stuff. I know yeah, Rob, don't tell me about testimonials. I know that, right? Are you doing it? Number one. But number two, this is, again, is part of strategy. If you're not intentionally using these, you're leaving out an important part of a brand strategy that's going to build your brand. Because here's the key. If anybody, there's some people out here who do know me, and they know that fitness is an important part of my life. The thing I hate about fitness and keeping in shape is you got to do it every day, like, or at least several times a week. And can anybody tell me, can anybody relate to this? Just say, yeah, me in the chat. If you can relate to this, you would wish that, man, if I could just work out one day and be in the shape for the rest of my life, that'd be great, right? Well, I'm with you. I wish that was the case. I exercise regularly. I don't like it. I do it for the results, right? But that's not the way it works. And that's the way branding works too. Branding is an evolution. Branding is a long-term strategy. Look, you have sales as a short-term strategy. You go out there, you grind, you make phone calls, you get referrals, you're networking, you're advertising. Like, these are your short-term strategies. You're selling, you're getting on a client consult call, and you're like, you want to close the deal, right? You need to get that sale. That's short-term strategy. Why? Because you got to do it again. And then you got to do it again. Branding is a long-term strategy, but you got to do it all the time. You've got to, again, you don't got to sell all the time. You just have to make important decisions that build your and strengthen your brand over time on a regular basis. So regularly using social proof, regularly talking about your branded process, right? These are things that you're going to use. Regularly honing in on that ideal client. These are the things you do on a regular basis over time. that will eventually over time kick in a referral machine so that your loyal audience, your raving fans will perpetuate revenue for you. Why? Because you got brand ambassadors out there who you don't even pay. They're talking good about you, referring you, recommending you, singing your praises, liking your social media stuff, which pushes it to the top of the algorithm. All this contributes to a strong brand that's going to keep paying you over the years, so you don't have to keep grinding. See, my whole thing is I'm a lazy guy. I don't want to grind for the rest of my life. I wanted to build a strong brand so my company over time, I wouldn't have to sell in the very kind of basic sense of trying to get somebody to buy from me. Does that make sense? Tell me in the chat that makes sense to you. It's got to, right? So social proof is a key part of that. Let me tell you something. Thank you, Mario. Oh, Bianca said, Jim, 4 times a week is a hassle. No doubt. And 4 times, it's a total hassle, but you got to do it, right? So either, COVID pushed us into our homes and, I kind of got some weights in my home now. And so I stopped going to the gym, but I'm actually able to do it and work it into my day whenever I need to. So it becomes a little bit easier, harder sometimes because you get so busy and the cookies are right around the corner. But, as long as we know what we want in our mind and we have a goal, we can work towards it. But I'm with you, Bianca. It is a hassle. All right. So yes, perfect. Yes. So it is making sense. So good. So let's get on to the next thing. We're going to be winding this down soon. The next thing, I promise you don't really understand that much, and that's okay. This is a branding thing. It's something that conceptually what it is, but how to apply it in business is a whole nother thing. And you as business owners, here's the thing, right? If you're just starting out, if you're a solopreneur, maybe you don't have aspirations of building a company with employees. Maybe it's just you and one other person. Maybe it's only going to be you. I want you to think about this for a second. You know that when you started your own business, if you've held a job before, you know what I'm talking about. Now, I had a job. I worked in corporate America for 25 years, managing creative teams, working for an advertising agency, marketing agency, a publishing house. I worked in sign and displays. I worked in retail, all around the creative space. So I understand a lot of this stuff. But when I opened my own business, and I knew this, the deal is this. I wasn't just going to be responsible for the creative. I was going to be responsible for the sales, for the operations, for the finance, for the maintenance, for the technology, for all these things you are responsible for. So when you're building your brand, you're going to be responsible for a bunch of things. And so let's look at the next thing. Cohesion. All right. Consistency in branding raises trust and lowers risk. What is that consistency? What do I mean by cohesion? All right. Cohesion is this. Now, depending on the year or the study or who you've heard it from, you've heard something like this. It takes 27 impressions before a person makes a purchase. That's the advertising world. One of the more recent ones I heard said this, that it takes 9 exposures to your brand before a person decides to take an action. Not takes an action, but decides to take an action. 9 exposures. So let's take that example for a second. If that's true, and I don't know if it is, but if it is true, that means this. If your marketing involves social media, so it involves Facebook ads, and it involves video, and it involves email marketing, and it involves in-person networking, each one of those, people are gonna have an exposure to your brand. All right, so here's the thing. So like advertising, that repetition kicks in. Well, if it's a good repetition that involves cohesion, it means this, that wherever you show up, wherever your brand shows up, so if you show up in person and you show up on a Facebook ad and you show up in a video and wherever you show up, if it's the same, that means that Facebook ad, 1 exposure, in person, 2nd exposure, a video, 3rd exposure, email, 4th exposure. By the time you get to 9, right? They should be making a decision to reach out to you. But that is totally relying upon the fact that you had a consistent, cohesive series of exposures. Now, here's the thing. That means that wherever you show up pretty much the same. Now, if you don't show up the same, here's what happens. So if you look at my background here, and it's all orange, right? And orange and charcoal and some white in there. If I show up here on Facebook ad, And then in video, you see me talking and I'm in front of this background. And then the next time you see me, I'm showing up, clean shaven with a blue background, and I got flowers, in a background picture. And that's what I show up on a video or something. Now your brain's going, I don't know what this is. Guess what? That's not your third exposure. That you're back to zero, right? Because now what happens? Consistency has been interrupted. Thought pattern has been interrupted. I don't know what this is. So there's a reset. Now you've got to go back to exposure number one again. So that means this. If you know me, you know wherever I show up, whether it's on Zoom, whether it's on video, whether it's in person, number one, orange is my color, right? That's how I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up with my logo on me somewhere, somehow. My logo is going to be showing up somewhere, everywhere I go. Now, what does that speak to? I'm going to lay it out for you here. So cohesion of your branding elements. These are just some of the branding elements there are. Now, branding is not your logo exclusively, right? It's not the name of your company exclusively. Branding is a series of elements that involves, yes, these things, but it also involves, like we said, mission, vision, values, ideal client, messaging, company name, company tagline, branded process, design, logo, and under design are all these things as well. Color. I talked about orange. Wherever I show up, orange is the color that I'm going to be representing. If I show up with blue, it interrupts the pattern. There's a disruption in the cohesion. All right. Font. Pick a font. It could be any font. It does matter, but for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to say it doesn't really matter as long as it's the same, right? Words, the words you use, the words you do not use. Now, could you imagine, if you were to, we talked about fitness, we got some fitness fans in here. I know that, say there was this gym, that you were thinking to go to, and it's called Rhino Fitness, and Rhino sounds very strong, right? Because that's the image they want to portray. Rhino is a very strong animal. It's very tough, it's probably going to run through everything. It's a beast. And so if you heard about it, you said, oh, let me go to their website, and you go there and you're thinking, I picture a rhino, they got that big horn, and they got like I don't know if it's a shell, I don't know much about animals, but it's like a shell, or it's almost like armor. It looks tough. It looks leathery. They're bad to the bone, right? And you go on the website, and well, it's pink, right? And they have pictures of petunias on there, right? And they have somebody dancing with one little weight in their hand. What are you thinking? Like, I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm just saying there's a disconnect, because what they're using is not making sense. If they're saying Rhino Fitness, we are one bad place to get yourself in shape. We work you to the bone and all this stuff. But then, when you go to the website, it says something different, uses different words. Like, there's a disconnect, right? Those words are going to be very important that you use. They have to be in line with your brand. So there's a cohesion there. Words like in my branding, if I said things like, hey, we're going to have a real swell time here. I'm really looking forward to meeting some nice people. Like that's not really who I am. I am a nice guy and I like meeting nice people. But when I get with you, I said, listen, we're going to hammer your message. You're going to make an impact in business with your brand. You are absolutely going to kill it. I use very kind of effusive language. Those words are important. They're in line with my brand, because Beast brand, evokes images of, beast, of working hard, of maybe a little bit of fear or kicking fear inside in the case of my brand. But you've got to pick the words that are in line with the brand. Things like imagery. What are the photographs you're using? Like when I said Rhino Fitness, you probably picture, hey, I would think there'd be a lot of kind of pretty strong imagery around that. But if it's very soft imagery, again, there's a disconnect. So you've got to make sure that they're the same. When you look at, I always love to use the example of a Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, both sell coffee. And I know they sell other things, but they both have kind of they're in the same industry, right? They don't have the same exact market, because when you look at who shops at each, they're a different kind of audience. When you go into a Dunkin' Donuts, for example, and this starts to evoke a lot of the things I'm talking about here. To go into Dunkin' Donuts, what does it look like? Now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's got usually the light colored hard floor, and it's very brightly lit, and it's very white in there, and they got a little like fake wood trim, and the surfaces are very hard. You got to sit in hard chairs at hard tables. and it's kind of get your coffee and get out. Thank you very much. See you next time. They don't really want you to stay in Dunkin' Donuts. It's not very inviting. But what about Starbucks? When you go in Starbucks, what is the imagery there? What is the visual you see there, right? You go in, it's dimly lit. So it looks like a place, hey, I might be able to hang out here. They have soft chairs, soft couches. They have wood everywhere. And you go up there and they're happy to see you. And, the barista is going to get you your favorite drink. And you get there and you've got a book, you've got your laptop. What do? You plant yourself right under the dimly lit sconce, right next to the column, and your favorite easy chair with the table in front of you. And you plant yourself. They both sell the same thing, but they appeal to different audiences. Now, when you go into either one of those, though, around the country or even around the world, aren't they pretty much the same thing? You know what to expect when you go into Dunkin' Donuts, and you know what to expect when you go into Starbucks. So the cohesion is there in terms of these companies. All right, voice. Voice is another thing. When you are talking, when anybody is talking that represents your company, what does that voice sound like? Is it a voice that is extremely friendly? Is it a voice that is extremely assertive, authoritative? What is the message you're sending to your people in your business? Is your business message, is the voice that comes out very assertive and authoritative because it needs to be? I know some fitness trainers, and they'll basically, you don't interview them and you don't hire them. They interview you and decide whether to take you on. Why? Because if you're going to not be accountable, they will fire you, and they will tell you. They will say, hey, get your fat butt out of bed and get yourself over to the gym. I'm waiting. I'm going to wait another 5 minutes and then I'm out and we're done. Right. So maybe if that kind of trainer, and they exist, right, that's their voice. It's very authoritative. It's very assertive. There are other trainers, and I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying that these are different brands. Somebody else might be like, hey, listen, I'm going to meet you there and we're going to do this together, right? Arm in arm, hand in hand. I'm going to work with you and we're going to move at your pace. And it's okay. We're going to take our time on this. It's a different message. That's a different voice, supportive, friendly, compassionate. Now, both of them have audiences, right? Because I know people that go to each of those kinds of trainers and they're both successful, right? You just have to decide, what is your brand's voice? What do you want it to be? And be, again, cohesive, consistent in that message, no matter where you speak. It has to be the same. Otherwise, confusion creeps in. Here's another thing. So we'll go to the next one. So look, I know we're in the age of Zoom, right? And we're kind of like face-to-face. And I know this is different. This is a webinar. But, there's a difference between, if you want to move somebody to action, what do you think has a better result? Somebody is thinking of hiring a company like you, and you hear about it. So what do? You shoot them an email and you say, hey, when it's come time to buy, why don't you reach out to me? Here's my information. Do you think that's going to get a better result, or do you think this will get a better result? Call them up on the phone. Hey, you know what? So-and-so referred me. He said, you might be in the market. I just want to see how I can help. I want to see what your biggest challenges is. I think I may be able to help. I've had several clients just like you. And, that approach on the phone, at least, if you can get on a Zoom or in person, even better, right? But you want to be speaking directly to the person. Why? People buy from people. They don't buy from businesses. So here's what I love. I love in person, but in person is not always the most practical way of doing business if you're really busy. So the next thing is Zoom. Thanks to Zoom, we can hop on here in a matter of seconds and we can meet for the first time. I can see you, you can see me, I can look you in the eyes, you can feel my compassion, you can feel my heart, you can sense my message about what I am about, and decide whether or not this is somebody you want to continue talking to and maybe buy from. I want to say, speaking face to face builds trust, flat out. When they see your face and they see somebody they can trust, and hopefully you're trustworthy, right? That implies that you're trustworthy, right? You don't want to be getting over on people. But when you're trustworthy and you can get in front of somebody, guess what? You've just done the best thing you could do to build trust. Don't rush through the process and fire off a bunch of emails or texts and wondering why you're not getting hired more often. Look, and that may work sometimes, but that's working really hard and you're passing up opportunity. And I know this is a saying that says work smarter, not harder. Don't do that. Work smarter and harder, please. Excuse me. Work smarter and harder. Can I get an amen in the chat? Work smarter and harder. You want to blow away everybody who's in your industry? Work smarter and work harder. Working smart means sometimes taking the time to slow down, get in front of somebody face to face, find out what their challenge is. Then explain how your solution has solved that for the people. Point to some testimonials. Send them to maybe your videos. Send them some information. Maybe give them a reference. Social proof, right? All these things I'm talking about. Send them your videos. There's some cohesion in there. They're going to have different exposures, but similar experience. And so you're going to be able to build trust through that. So I'm going to sum this up here. All right. So when you're marketing yourself, this is a summation. Yes, you want to raise trust. I know you know that, but you've got to intentionally think about how you're going to do that. You want to lower risk. And again, you know you want to do that. You know you should. You've got to think intentionally, how am I going to do that? And I've given you some of the ways to do it. You know, this isn't all of brand strategy. I can help you with all of it, but this is something you can use tomorrow and get better results. Identify that ideal client. You could sit down for an hour and it would be well worthwhile to really get exactly who that is. Because again, once you know who they are, you know how to talk to them in order to attract them to you, to be a fan of yours, right? Knowing who you're talking to, know your audience, know who you're talking to, so that when you speak, they go, they're speaking my language, right? You've just drawn them in. All right, brand your process. So I talked about the process, but I didn't stress the importance of branding the process. So have that process, write it out. And somebody wrote in here, and I apologize, I don't remember your name, but you wrote you have it, but it's just not tight enough yet. Tighten it up, right? Get it to 3, maximum 4 steps that you can write down. You can put it on your website, right? You can talk about it in 3 or 4 simple steps and then brand it. This is our exclusive ABC methodology. This is how we get success for our clients. When you brand it, you've taken, you have doing so much more to increase trust and lower risk in their brains, because they go, man, they're so good. They have their own exclusive process. You bet. All right. Utilize social proof. Get the videos, get the testimonials, put out the quotes, use previous client stories with this potential client. Like when I do it, I say, I had this client one time. Here's where the challenge was, and here's where the trepidation was, and here's how we worked through it, and here was the result. Challenge, solution, result. Right? When you illustrate those 3 things through conversation, don't just be robotic about it and put it out there. Weave it into your conversations, because as you're talking, you're developing more credibility with them, so more trust. So utilize that social proof, right? And create cohesion. The opposite of that is creating confusion, right? But it's cohesion. It's a consistency in the exposures of your brand. Pick a color, pick a font, use them everywhere. At a very basic level, it's that. Pick words that you like to use over and over again that accentuate the brand, and use them over and over again. You'll get to know what those are and people will relate to them. That way, when they see orange, boom, they think of your company. When they hear a word, they think of your company. Again, in the quiet of their mind at 10:30 at night, they're lying in bed. They're going, I really need to make that purchase. I'm going to call. If your name doesn't pop up in their head, you don't have a strong enough brand yet, because the moment of truth is when they decide in their own mind that they're going to make a purchase from you. You've got to be there in the head. You can't time when they're going to buy. You just got to be in their head when they decide to buy. So we're going to end up with this. I'm going to give you some free stuff here. So I want you to be able to dig into couple of the things I'm talking about. So go to this webpage here, unleashmybeastbrand.com/build trust. I want you to do that now. And I just want you to fill in the information, and I'm going to send you some things to help you. I'm going to send you an exclusive tool I have called the Persona Zone Clear Client Identifier tool that will help you, number one, give you a way to illustrate who your ideal client is, but more than that, because you should have an idea, and you'll be able to do this on your own once you really think about who you want to talk to. The tool is not specifically only that. What it's more so is when you have that down, you'll be able to find out when you talk to somebody, and when you're potentially got somebody that's gonna hire you, you'll be able to run them through this identifier tool and find out, are they ideal or are they a nightmare? And that's a key thing right there. You want to pass by the nightmare clients. And you're going to get some stuff in there about branded process too, and some other things. Unleashmybeastbrand.com/build trust. Go to that website there, fill that in, take that free stuff. And I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to me. I want to thank the SCORE crew here, Larry and Raquel and Chandra. I appreciate the time, appreciate the opportunity. And please hit me up on social media, Unleash My Beast Brand, everywhere you can find me. It won't be hard to find me. Appreciate, hopefully get to talk with you sometime in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, for, as Mario just said on the chat, for an excellent presentation. We appreciate it. I'd like to solicit questions and answers. So, questions. So if you have any questions, please do so through the Q&A. One question that came in from Patrick, but you kind of answered it, but I just wonder if you have any further thoughts on it. How do you identify a client that you can work with or that you want to work with?
So there's a lot of ways where you can gather the information for identifying the ideal client. And one way is history of clients. If you have a history of clients already, and if you're just starting up, maybe you don't yet, but, work with people so you get to know who you like to work with, and then go back and say, who was the best? Now, here's a bonus. I'll give you 4 traits of the ideal client. Number 1 is they pay your fee, right? They don't try and chew you down. Number 2 is they trust in your expertise. They value your expertise. They don't second guess you. Number 3, they get a successful result, and sometimes that's a lot on them as much as it is on you. And the 4th thing is they refer you to other people. That's the key. If they don't satisfy those 4, those are the generic traits of an ideal client. If they don't satisfy those 4, they don't even qualify for a lot of the specifics. But you can look at a history of who you like to work with, who got the best result. For sometimes I had one client one time, he said, our ideal client is male, 55 to 65, this, that, and the other thing. But when we started digging deeper, I said, well, who are you getting who are your most successful clients? And he goes, actually, it's women 45 to 55 and some other things. And I said, so he's like, then he understood, right? Sometimes track record and who got the most success with us gives us a real insight to who the ideal client is. And then obviously, if you're looking for fans and you're on social media, go to your social media fans. Who's loving your stuff? And find out who they are. Find out all those traits. And that gives you a real insight into who that ideal client is. And then what you do is you take all the information, you put it down on paper, and then you work with your marketer. If you're a marketer, you do this. But if you work with a digital marketer, they will help you find those people and target ads and marketing directly to those people. Why? Because if you know exactly who you're talking to and you can craft that message, you'll attract more of them to you. And guess what? You get more and more ideal clients. They refer you to more and more people like them who are ideal. Hope that answers it.
Okay. The one question that actually I had was, how long did it take you to develop this process, to establish yourself and figure out this works, that doesn't, and stuff like that? So
it's a great question. When I first started my company, I went out and got clients right away. But while I wasn't doing that, I was developing my process because I didn't want to repeat mistakes. So I would write down what worked and I would write down what didn't work, and I would change that. And I would constantly add value to the process and hone it. And then the next time I had a client, I would go back to my notes and I would follow the things that worked. And then again, refine it. Okay, these worked. Okay, I noticed that this didn't work, or maybe why didn't it work? And you talk to enough people, you get a sense, and then I would change it the next time and go, okay, I added this and it worked. And you get a list of things that work. And by the way, that's the start of your process. So a lot of times this stuff it's not, you can't intellectualize it without actually getting in there. There's a saying that you can't steer a parked car. You could sit there and you could turn the wheel all you want. You're not going to go in the direction you want to go. You're not going anywhere. As soon as you get driving, you can then get to your destination, but it takes getting in motion to find out a lot of these details.
And one question we have from Zahira, how can I strengthen my potential with partnering with brands such as Nike, Lulu, and other companies?
Here's a good one. So that's a really good question. That's a high level question, and I appreciate that. If we all remember some time back when Colin Kaepernick took a knee during the anthem, right? It was a very polarizing event for a lot of people. A lot of people were with him. A lot of people were against him. One of the biggest brands that was with him was Nike. So think about this for a second. If your values and your beliefs line up with the company you would like to be partnered with, you have more of a chance of the partnership. Now, people said, oh, what a mistake. Nike's going to drop him like some of the others did. Not only did Nike not drop him, but right, they put him forefront in front of a campaign. Why? His values and his beliefs aligned with Nike's. So this is where you as a brand can collaborate with another brand. But look, you gotta understand, you have to have the same beliefs and values. Maybe your missions are in alignment. This is why mission, vision, and values are so important. If your mission is in line with another company, immediately they're going, we need to do something together. I don't know what, but we need to do something together, right? Because your mission, your cause is going to be, you're going to be able to reach it a lot better, a lot faster when you are aligned with somebody else, another organization who can help you get there. You know, you rally for the cause.
Okay. Rob, I think I'll leave it there. As a reminder, you will be receiving a link to the recording. Now, please join me in thanking our presenter, Rob Genovese. I'd like to thank Gosling Media and the Small Business Administration for their support of this webinar and SCORE. I thank all of you for participating, and I look forward to seeing you at future webinars. Thank you very much and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.